Hello, hello, it's Brian again. Well, there's only 20 hours left for the five crew members of the deep submersible near the bottom of the ocean exploring the Titanic. So I'd like us to just all pray, whether we're Christians, Hindu, Islamic, Buddhist, or you believe in Thunderbird, or maybe just believe that the universe, something behind it, has goodwill, something that can control a trillion suns and convert some of it to stardust so that a little pea pod can grow, the amazing world, which is and universe, which is almost beyond our comprehension. It is, in fact. So if we can all have some goodwill that maybe they survived the initial, when they lost communication, and maybe at this point there's some transponders or some listening devices, sonar buoys that are deep enough and enough of them to triangulate their position, that maybe we can get that position and then get a noose around it, the submersible, and raise it up. So let us pray that, this can happen. Now, submersibles, the strongest type of vessel, the shape is a sphere. A sphere distributes stress. It's just kind of like an arch, the capstone, when you press down on it, distributes stress all around. Now, a cylinder has a straight line. When you take a pencil and bend it, one side's under tension, other side's under compression, and where the lead is, it's a little bit of the neutral axis. But a straight line is more subjected to having a breakdown, especially over longer distances. And so if you were to have spheres and you wanted more people, maybe having a couple spheres with a small connection between the two. And I would prefer to be able to open a hatch. Of course, I've one time tried to open a hatch on a submarine when we didn't have an equalizing valve. We're getting ready to snorkel, and when there's a little differential pressure, and I'm talking, 1 inch of mercury or half a pound of difference in pressure, when you multiply it over the surface area, you can put your back up against it and press 250 pounds to try to get the pressure to equalize. And when you multiply it over the area, it's a lot of force. And so now there was a person earlier, my wife said, oh, well, the lift bags might lift it. Well, when you're down that depth, and if it's 14,000 feet, and you might have 1/4 or 500th the volume lifting capacity, and to be able to even press anything into a lifting bag, which just doesn't work. So lifting bags are obviously more towards the surface. And even on the submarine I was on, we had a 4-stage Worthington compressor. And the first piston, which compressed the air, we could take air from inside the ship and compress it, was this big, and they kept getting consecutively smaller. So till finally, it's a high pressure. But, air compresses. When you go down to 33 feet or 10 meters, you're at 2 atmospheres. You include the weight of the air above, from sea level to outer space, that weight up to about 50,000 feet. That weight of that air is 14.7 pounds. Then you go down 33 feet, you get another 14.7 pounds. But the volume of the air is reduced by half. When you go 10 atmospheres, somewhere around 300 or 330 feet, then you're going to go ahead and have 1/10. So then when you get down to these others depths, you're going to end up having about 1/400th or 1/500th of the volume. It's just going to be very tiny. So you won't have any lifting capacity. A cubic foot of air in salt water is about 64 pounds of lift. So you're not going to have any lift, and it's just very impractical once you get to past certain depths, depending on the capacity and pressure that your compressors and tank systems can deal with. That's why a scuba bottle, it only has maybe a half of a cubic foot or a little over half a cubic foot or less than a cubic foot of volume if you poured water into it, but it might have 60 to 90 cubic feet of volume when it's at 2,500 to 3,000 psi if you were to let it out into a bag. So pressure just squeezes air down too tiny to be able to be used for lifting. That's why the Trieste used gasoline since it's lighter than water and it's non-compressible. So I'm praying for these folks. I hope if you get the sonar buoys down below the thermoclines and different various temperatures of salinity and temperature and can get a good listening, then you'll be able to, if it's directional and it can figure out the direction and you get 3 or more, 2 or more actually, and then you can point at the direction that this noise comes from if somebody's pounding. So hopefully we've got those sonar buoys at the depths that can hear it and enough of them to triangulate the position. Also, I don't know. It worries me. I think the Kevlar, not the Kevlar, but the carbon fiber epoxy cylinder may be okay, but even though I kind of prefer the sphere, we don't know. One time I saw something on television, and it was a C-130 that had a lot of hours on it, and it's a very dependable aircraft. But once it's been flying long enough, and the wings have been vibrating, and I saw the firefighting, and then the wings sheared off it, and what the heck? And it was micro cracks just from being fatigued from use. So sometimes you just got to check over and over again, and to make sure that after being compressed and then released and compressed, that the pressure vessel is in the condition it was originally. Now, I remember some of the guys says, oh yeah, those Russian subs, they got titanium and they go really deep. Well, and I says, well, is that so? And then some of my friends says, yeah, but once they go down really deep, then the second time they can't go as deep and consecutively less and less. So some, depending on the metallurgy, but this is, of course, just depending on whatever the composite is, you got to keep testing to make sure it isn't fatigued or has micro cracks. So anyway, and then again, the air is not going to get you up. So hopefully they have a system similar to the Trieste where they can release. I prefer, with the magnetic balls, loss of power, bam, and now you're positively buoyant. But if they're hung up, but if we got those darn listening devices deep enough that it's in not the sound waves aren't channelized by the different layers, then we'll be able to hear it. If it's underneath the warmer water and it's pretty much the same temperature and salinity, and pick it up and triangulate. So I pray to whatever powers that may be that we can pull that off and they haven't already perished, and we get them up. So that's what I hope. And I'm hoping, that I feel like on my submarine, we had hydraulic systems for steering and diving. Now here you've got these little units that, are similar to the steering propulsion nozzles, that were designed back in the 1930s for tugboats. quart nozzles. So anyway, that, you still wouldn't want to have some backup systems. But we had port and starboard hydraulics, and we had systems for even if you lost hydraulics. We had such redundancy in the Navy that, you just got to appreciate it. And every time we shut the submarine down and then turned it over, we had a two-crew system because it was a missile submarine that we would have to kind of test the systems and you know every time you shut them down there's little glitches you want to take care of. So a lot of those things have to be checked, especially fatigue, like that C-130 that crashed, the wing sheared off, yet it's one of the most reliable aircraft there is, and very much of a workhorse, but you still have to maintain it. And then the cylinder isn't quite as structurally sound and has quite as much integrity as the sphere. Now, if you had a couple spheres, 2 or 3 spheres with some little connections between them, that might be better. Who knows? But I'm wishing the best for them. And it's kind of like, when you have a car and you say, well, what's better, rolling the windows up by hand or having power windows? Well, if your life depends on it, you may want to be able to roll them up as a backup if the power system doesn't work. So I like the redundancy of the Navy, and I think that is important for, and I think analog systems and actual electromechanical systems are good. The things that are, that you depending on little frequencies and sound waves inside, and trigger controls and stuff. Well, you got to have, I prefer, if I was at a power plant, if I throw a switch and a relay operates a big slamming switch that's so strong it handles 10,000 watts or volts, I kind of like that rather than a little computer. I think, the more hands-on we have, even for big systems that control our grid, I think we have to have the backup systems. I mean, if there was a nuclear concussion blast or something that wasn't enough to hurt everybody, but knocked all our electronics out, I want to be able to throw a switch or have some analog systems that show me what's really going on as a backup. So I think, the closer you get to actually doing things by hand, sometimes is okay, or at least systems that are very less susceptible to glitches, because there are glitches. So you got to have your backups kind of get simpler and simpler to where finally it's just, I can roll this up by hand and it still works. So I'm hoping that we can triangulate their position with the multiple sonar buoys at the right depth, get a noose around them, and haul them up, and that's what I pray for, and I hope it happens. And all I could say is good luck. I'm praying that they don't become, it's kind of like a big tomb for 1,000 people or 1,500 people or whatever who are on that ship. And we already know that the captain of the Titanic wanted to get there in a hurry. And so he kind of says, we'll be okay. We'll just keep going. There shouldn't be any icebergs this far down. So his thinking was, let's make a record getting over there. And then the metallurgy of that day for that large of a ship wasn't quite up to what it needed to be. And then, it's icebergs. Most of it's underneath the water. And if you're going that fast at night, things can happen. I mean, I was on a sailboat and a big tuna vessel, a 230-ton vessel, ran right over the top of our little 6-ton vessel and cut us in half and took off. So things, we already know that people sometimes don't make the best decisions. But I think I think we need to just pray for these folks and everybody on the little sailboat I was on survived, and I hope everybody on this vessel has survived and that they can be rescued. Thanks for your time. Have a great day. Bye.